G'day everyone, welcome to Frostbite's G.I. Joe Repro, and today we're going to look at 50 facts you probably missed in G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra. In 2009, G.I. Joe fans were treated to something much anticipated. It was the release of G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra, a movie that all Joe fans had been waiting for since the 1980s, representing the amazing franchise that we know and loved from our childhood. The film was directed by Stephen Sommers and was based on Duke and Ripcord being recruited for a special forces team while in the process of trying to protect a military convoy. Set in the not-too-distant future, the film featured a mixture of realistic military action and sci-fi style weaponry, such as concussion pistols and nanomites. Like most other movies based on franchises, it contains several nods to other G.I. Joe media that came before it. So let's go through 50 facts that you probably missed. During a bit of banter between Ripcord and Heavy Duty, Ripcord comments on Heavy Duty's lifelike hair and kung fu grip. These were both action features on the original 12-inch G.I. Joe doll. This was a beautiful nod back to the old-school action figures while also demonstrating some witty discussion between military teammates. When you watch the movie next, check Duke's face. The scar under his right eye is a homage to the famous scar on the original 12-inch G.I. Joe figure, which was introduced in 1964. It was added then as a copyright mark to prevent unlawful reproduction. The Eiffel Tower getting destroyed is a direct reference to the first episode of the Sunbow cartoons named The Cobra Strikes, where Cobra Commander and Destro made the Eiffel Tower disappear with the mass device. Are you wondering where the idea for the nanomites come from? Go check out the early issues of DDP G.I. Joe comics where Alexander McCullen uses nanomites to infect his father and Cobra Commander. We see what the nanomites can do to people, but did you notice that the nanomite injections the Doctor gives the Neo Vipers leaves behind a scar in the shape of the classic Cobra logo? During the attack on the pit, did you happen to spot the red jersey iconically linked with Bazooka in the pit's rec room? You'll see it right behind Ripcord. Breaker's love for bubblegum from the comics was expressed in a scene where he asked for a stick of chewing gum. It was great that they could take a second to drop that in. In one of many truly epic references, the Baroness describes Duke and his team as real American heroes, a description that cannot be mistaken for any other toy line in existence. When the Baroness suggests that Snake Eyes has given up his pursuit, Storm Shadow warns her that he never gives up. This is a line from the 1980s original theme song. He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. As Duke and Ripcord avoid the missiles launched from the Steel Crusher APV, the camera moves to be in front of them and the scene briefly freezes, framing the two men with an explosion behind them, just like the card art from the 80s figures. This wouldn't have been a G.I. Joe movie without Dennis Quaid as General Hawk saying his iconic catchphrase.
And knowing is half the battle.
At the end of the movie, the G.I. Joe team is on an aircraft carrier that appears to be the USS Flag. It bears the number 99. Make sure you watch the credits where you'll see a collection of stickers from the original toy line. According to Brian Goldner, the writers took their inspiration mostly from Larry Hama's G.I. Joe comics, and not the animated series. Lorenzo di Bonaventura admits he felt that the Cobra organization, as depicted in the cartoon, was probably the stupidest evil organization out there. In an interview with Brian Goldner, he stated that he wanted to make sure that they had the element of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. They wouldn't be able to tell the entire origin story and go in through the entire Arashikage clan story. But yet, they could have beats of that would certainly be reminiscent for the fans of those stories that were told back in the 80s. But yet also tell it in a broad enough way that someone who doesn't understand the specifics can still understand the idea of these two ninjas who are diametrically opposed and are sworn enemies. When given a painkiller on the G.I. Joe transport after their unit is ambushed, Ripcord jokes that Duke was government issued, which is what GI stands for. When asked about her role in the movie, Sienna Miller said the following: "I loved it. It was such a relief to do something that was just pure entertainment and fun, and I had to get fit for the first time in my life, and that was entertaining. 6 weeks of fight training, I can do mixed martial arts, I can fire weapons now, I'm a good little scrapper. It's very difficult to recreate an iconic character like the Baroness, but it was a lot of fun." The action scenes in Paris were actually filmed in Prague. For the scenes, filmmakers built shops with flowers, changed school names, and parked mostly old French manufactured cars on the streets. It was a mixture of nationalities and fake accents in the film. Jonathan Pryce is English, playing the President of the United States. Sienna Miller, likewise, as the Baroness. Although she was born in New York, she was raised in the UK, and thus too faked the accent. Lee Byung-hun is Korean, playing the Japanese Storm Shadow. Brendan Suhu, who plays him as a child, is Chinese-American. Scarlett in the movie is Canadian. However, actress Rachel Nichols is American and English. And Christopher Eccleston plays Scottish James McCullum. The Delta 6 accelerator suits are a reference to Sigma 6's Sigma suits. The Delta 6 accelerator suits delighted Stuart Beattie and made him ride up a car chase where one guy's not even in a car. However, they were bulky and heavy for the actors to wear. According to Stephen Summers on the DVD commentary, one of the studio's executives disliked the idea of Snake Eyes wearing a mask so much that he tried to get him to remove it. I think with how those lips looked and that costume, that might have been a good idea. Studio staff originally envisaged Mark Wahlberg for the role of Duke. I'm sort of glad they didn't pick him for it, but let me know in the comments what you think of the choice. The rapper Common was offered the role of Heavy Duty's cousin Roadblock, but when he turned it down, the character was then changed to Heavy Duty. Karolina Kokova, a Czech model in real life, took on the role of Covergirl, an actual model on the G.I. Joe team. Her Joe career was short-lived, though, after being stabbed in the back by Zartan. Interestingly, she wasn't referred to by any name in the movie, and only as Covergirl in the credits. According to producer Don Murphy, Transformers came about while he was first developing G.I. Joe into a feature film. As the story goes, he'd been trying for quite some time to get G.I. Joe off the ground, and had finally gotten a studio on board. He stated, "I had been in conversation with Hasbro to do G.I. Joe actually, and Sony was interested in doing it." Murphy explained in an interview while on the set of Transformers. "Then we invaded Iraq, and it became kind of clear that doing a movie called G.I. Joe was probably not the smartest idea at that point. This would have been in 2003, right at the start of what would eventually be called the Second Gulf War. Of course, G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra came out years later, before the conflict in Iraq even ended. But Transformers was the brand that Hasbro Films wanted to see brought to the big screen first." If you're enjoying this video, please hit that subscribe button and check out my other videos on my channel. Larry Hama was hired as a creative consultant on the film. He also got a cameo. Did you see him? He was a NATO general during the Nanamai presentation. The role was cut during editing, and he can only be seen in wide shots of the NATO assembly. So go back and watch the movie and look out for Larry. Michael Benier plays a flight control attendant in the film. Benier had been involved in the franchise previously in the 1989 series, where he voiced Scoop and Airwave. He's appeared in many feature films, including Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Hitman, Postal, and Deadpool. Channing Tatum originally didn't want to act in this film because it felt it glorified war. He changed his mind when he read the script. His friend and Stop Loss co-star Joseph Gordon-Levitt also encouraged him to sign on. He has been extremely vocal with his dislike of the film, but later clarified that he more hated the studio politics that forced him to do it, threatening him with a lawsuit if he refused to honor his 3-picture deal. He's referred to the film's quality as really not all that bad. Sounds like he's pretty excited about it. Martial artist and stuntman Ray Park had little knowledge of the G.I. Joe saga, but as a child he had played with a Snake Eyes action figure. He was very delighted to play a childhood hero of his. To prepare for the role, he practiced wushu training and studied Snake Eyes' appearances in the G.I. Joe comics and television series. Afterwards, he approached writer Kevin Van Hook and artist S.L. Gallant with the idea of a G.I. Joe comic, further exploring his incarnation of the character. Marlon Wayans was cast as Ripcord after his performance in Requiem for a Dream. He had auditioned for the role of Heavy Duty, but when it was taken by his co-star, he was offered the role of Ripcord instead. When asked what he could tell us about the film, he stated, "The brother don't die in the first minute. He actually helps save the day. He doesn't get slapped around by the white bad guy, and he gets the girl at the end of the day. Now, she a white girl, but he gets the girl. Honestly, at this point, it's not about white, black, it's about love, and it's colorless to me. In today's world, I think America is mature enough for that. We've got a black president. It's kind of like the maturity of the world. What's great about this romance is it's just cute. It's not sexual, it's a cute romance. I feel very good, really, about the movie. I saw it, there was a point I was looking at it, and I was going, I'm in that. It's crazy. It has humor, explosions, romance, adrenaline, and it got ninjas. That's all the ingredients for a huge summer blockbuster." Dennis Quaid obviously made a lot of friends on the set of this movie. The filmmakers enjoyed working with him so much that screenwriter Stuart Beattie created 10 to 15 more scenes for him. This is clearly a great feat, as he filmed all of his scenes in the very first 2 months of shooting, so he must have been one very likable actor. The love of G.I. Joe must flow deeply in the Quaid family. Quaid himself stated that he took the role of General Hawk on the insistence of his son, a fan of G.I. Joe. Born in 1992, Jack Quaid missed the first decade of G.I. Joe awesomeness, but was there for the second decade of pieces. Rachel Nichols was the first choice for the role of Scarlet. In an interview, she stated that when she was offered the role, she hadn't even read the script yet. When asked why she wanted to do the film, she answered blind faith, and she had heard other people say the script was good. Stephen Summers stated that this was the closest he would ever get to making a James Bond film. Stephen produced Rise of Cobra after his work on The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, and Van Helsing, before going on to fill an executive producer role on multiple Scorpion King spin-offs. Stephen Summers took great care over the technology depicted in the film, going through almost an amazing amount of various books and magazines about weapons technology. He feels that almost 100% of the technology can be developed within 10 to 20 years. According to Summers, total invisibility is impossible, but the camouflage cameras in the film project the view from a soldier's back onto their front and can allow for virtual invisibility. Ray Park was nervous about wearing the ninja suit and asked to practice with it at home so that he could be comfortable with it. He found the suit like wearing a rubber band and had to put effort into moving in it. Byung-hun Lee, who plays Storm Shadow, had no knowledge of the G.I. Joe saga, but was advised by the filmmakers not to learn about his character, letting his portrayal stand by itself. He described Storm Shadow as defined and driven by two conflicting facets: huge pride and a sense of honor. Heavy Duty was originally named Lamont Morris, but the name was changed in the movie to Herschel Dalton. However, his code number, which was 807-46-Lima Mike 65, contains Morris's initials to honor him. Rachel Nichols, a blonde, plays Scarlet, a redhead. Nichols had dyed her hair red for her previous role in the film Star Trek and kept it that way to nail her role. Sienna Miller is also naturally blonde and made the change to black hair for her role as the Baroness. The first 2 levels of the pit in the movie were constructed at the Downey soundstage. The rest is CGI. The original pit was 5 floors deep and lived underneath Chaplin's Assistant School's motor pool in Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island. Producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura and Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner chose screenwriter Michael Gordon to do the script completely on the basis of his work for 300. Olga Kurylenko was considered for the role of the Baroness. The Ukrainian actress starred in films such as Hitman, Oblivion, Black Widow, Quantum of Solace, and Extraction 2, so would have fit in just perfectly as Cobra's female lead. The Cobra Night Raven in the film differs greatly from its comic book and G.I. Joe TV counterparts. In the comics in the series, it's based on the SR-71 Blackbird, but in the movie, it's very much like the MiG-31 from the movie Firefox. Skip Woods wrote an early draft of the film, which featured Alex Mann, aka British Action Man, and the antagonist as the Naja/Ryan, a corrupt CIA agent. Scarlett is married to Action Man, but still has feelings for Duke and is killed by the Baroness. Snake Eyes speaks, but his vocal cords are slashed during the story, rendering him mute. Best friends Channing Tatum and Joseph Gordon-Levitt star as Duke and Cobra Commander, who are arch enemies in the G.I. Joe movie. Cobra Commander's mask was redesigned, partly because filmmakers thought the original version was too similar to the KKK mask. Joseph Gordon-Levitt joined the cast when he was shown the new mask that he would wear as Cobra Commander. For the voice of Cobra Commander, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was partly inspired by Chris Latter's voice from the original G.I. Joe cartoons, but he also used a bit of his own imagination, as he felt that copying Latter's voice fully would be unoriginal and ridiculous. A post-credit scene was planned in which famously mute ninja Snake Eyes would tell a joke to the G.I. Joe team. Larry Hama advised against it because it would detract from the seriousness of the film, as well as go against the core of Snake Eyes' character, who has always been portrayed as a complete mute. The original script had Snake Eyes taking a vow of silence until he got revenge on Storm Shadow. When Storm Shadow was seemingly killed in their final fight, Snake Eyes would sigh out, "Finally." Longtime Joe comic book writer Larry Hama warned the producers that the fans would loathe the entire movie just for that one moment, and it was dropped. This became hilarious in hindsight when fans complained about him talking in his solo movie, despite being an origin movie. Sienna Miller couldn't stop blinking when firing a gun, which, to be fair, is a difficult reflex to train yourself out of if you aren't used to firing guns. So they had the Baroness wear sunglasses in certain scenes just to hide her eyes. Now that you've finished my video, do me a favor and click on one of these boxes. I don't mind if it's one of the 2 on the side or that round one in the middle, but either way, just click on one of them. Go on, click on one of them. Clicking on one of these boxes is going to help greatly. Thanks very much for watching.